Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of Hashmap Megabytes. My name is David Herntzer, and today I'm going to walk you through part one of Snowflake data sharing. And part one deals with sharing data within the same cloud provider and region for Snowflake accounts. So we're going to add a few other parts to the series, such as sharing across cloud providers. That's going to be part two, spoiler alert. And then we're also going to dive into later on third-party accounts and finally on to the data exchange series. So without further ado, let's get started. So data sharing, what is it? I provided a link here to Snowflake's help documentation. Incredibly useful. They have a lot of great information here. I'm going to pare it down a little bit. Data sharing really is a provider-consumer mechanism, right, of tables, external tables, secure views, materialized views, UDFs, all via a share, a Snowflake share. And so you might ask yourself, what is a Snowflake share, right? Think of it in terms of like a read-only file share, where you create a folder, you add files to it, then you configure that folder to be a share, and then of course you release that folder as a share to a specific, user or group of users, right? No different here, except our share is kind of a logical share, and instead of adding files to it, the Snowflake, all we're doing is adding database objects, right? Again, such as views, tables, and things of that nature. There are two types of sharing basically inside Snowflake. One that is account-based, right? So you have to be a Snowflake account. And then another one is not, which is like third party. We're not going to really go over these, but I can kind of mention it. Third party is where the provider hosts the data, they host the compute, they do everything, right? You kind of create a reader account. Those are called third party. The way we're going to focus today is the Snowflake account-based, right? So this is where you have scenarios such as same cloud and region, right? So both consumer and provider are in the same cloud, same region. Again, that's our focus today. That's what we're going to start with. And then you have next option there is different cloud or region. And then, of course, Snowflake Marketplace. And again, those are going to be in later megabytes. So why should this be relevant? Modernization, right? Going from a traditional mindset into the new way, right? To a new modernized approach. So when we think of traditional sharing, right, we think of files, right? CSV and FTP sites or websites, blob stores, things of that nature. And that was great, like 15, 20 years ago. But let's go through some of the bad things. So one of the bad things when you think about traditional data sharing is, no direct access, right, to the data source. You're only pushing and pulling what you have access to, right? Which could be an update. It could be the entire system, right? Every single time in a file format. That brings us data duplication, right? Migration, push, pull, all those mechanisms where we have to do all this work ourselves. There's numerous places for errors to happen. And again, we're doing all the data manipulation ourselves. You could also be provided reports, right? Where the output from those reports needs to be downloaded or parsed. A lot of work for you to do that as well. And there's APIs, right? The problem with APIs is, of course, they're going to provide limited access to the data, of course, just to what the API was designed to give you access to. And then there's also, the fact that file-based data sharing is just cumbersome, right? Again, it's outdated. It's very difficult to do. So what's the new modernized approach? Snowflake data sharing, right? So what are the benefits here? So number one, you have direct access to the data source, right? That allows you to query on demand. Think about it. If I have 10 rows in a table and I run a query, I get 10 rows. Right there, literally real time. If someone adds 2 more rows and I run a select again, I get now 12 rows. Again, that leads to the next part. Updates are dynamic, right? If no matter what happens, I'm hitting the data source directly. So any updates, again, on my next query, I see the updated data. And one of the biggest ones for me, one of the most powerful, is I can join to existing Snowflake databases, right? So say I'm working in my own account and I have a shared data set. I can literally write a query that is going to inner join or outer join, however I want to do it. It's going to be able to join my database to this shared database that we're going to show you here in a second. I can add a virtually unlimited number of objects to the share, right? It's not kind of based on any format. If I want to add 10 views, if I want to add 30 views plus 20 tables, I can do whatever I want inside that share. And biggest thing is one share for a virtually unlimited number of consumers, right? That means one data source, and I'm paying for one storage of that data, right? I'm not duplicating that storage. And this, of course, helps with simplicity and the self-service part, right? The S's we always talk about. So simplicity and self-service come into play here. And really the possibilities are, unlimited. I just created a few here to kind of give you an overview. All right, let's jump into our use case. I'm trying to make this megabyte short and sweet. So what is our use case? My use case is going to be, I am a Snowflake customer, right? I have my own account. I'm going to be the provider, and I want to share my sales data with a client, right? A consumer. So the players involved are literally just that, provider, consumer, and they're both Snowflake accounts. Some are parameters. I threw a couple parameters in there because I really wanted this to be a little different than like a normal use case. I wanted to have a little bit of fun with this. So the parameters are, of course, the clients have to reside in the same cloud and region. No direct access to the tables, which means I don't want to share a table, or I'm not going to add a table to the share. So we're going to use secure views, and we're even going to abstract that a little bit. And I'm going to kind of show you what that means. Order and customer data is filtered dynamically by client and region. What that means is we're going to build in kind of this a layer of abstraction that allows us to control the filtering of data, so customer and order data. It allows us to filter it via Snowflake functions. So that'll be pretty fun. And then multiple clients will ultimately use the same data set /share. Spoiler alert, that's part 2 prep. But ultimately, we're going to do the exact same thing for part 2. And you can see how what we're doing now plays into when we start sharing data across cloud providers. So let's jump right in to our worksheets. All right, here we go. So I have 2 sheets open. This one is I'm using AWS for my scenario here today. And this one is the provider account. And you can see I am in US West Oregon. And on my other account, on this second tab here, is also US West Oregon. So again, 2 different accounts. You can tell that by the URL is different, right? So one says Hashmap Snowflake Demo, and the other one is just hashmap.snowflakecomputing.com. So again, based on that use case, I have 2 separate accounts, both in the same cloud provider and same region. All right, so let's go through some of this. I tried to speed this up a little bit, so I went and created these data sets right away. That's all these first 2 blocks here are doing. They're basically this step 1. It's creating my databases that I need. And this is really simple, guys. It's just a bunch of CTAs. I just took the TPCH data, the smallest data set that Snowflake has for us, and I just created my own data source for that. This next one here is a configuration database. And this is what I was referring to a minute ago when I talked about the way to dynamically kind of filter this data based on the account. We're going to walk through some of that in a minute here. And that's this database here. So I called it share test config DB. It's really more of security access, but same thing. All right, let's jump into step 2. Here's where some of the magic starts to happen. All right, so I want to be able to add the consumer account to my metadata. So let's walk through some of what this metadata means for this dynamic filtering. So I'm going to have registered regions. Let's go ahead and look at that. So if I go look at registered regions, what this is meaning, so in my data that I'm making available for my consumers, here's all, so based on my customers and my order data, here's all the regions that data resides in. So what I'm going to allow consumers to do is go to this table, which is registered accounts, and pretend we have a website, right, where they input a credit card number and I give them access to certain data, right? They can pick what they want, and kind of like a shopping cart thing, right, where as they pick the different regions they want to have access to, they pay, they hit update, and all this data is updated for you behind the scenes. And that's where this little cross-reference table comes in, account region access, where I'm going to have a cross-ref of the account the account of my consumer, the locator, right, that unique identifier that Snowflake provides, and the region name, right? And this, of course, can be multiple, right? We're initially going to start off with my demo account. So let's go ahead and set this up. Let me go ahead and set up my session settings here for the database and my schema. And you're probably wondering what this, in case you don't know, this is the unique identifier. This is the locator. So if I go over here to my consumer account, and I drop this window open, I'll see that identifier right here. And that's how we are going to be sharing data. That's how my dynamic data here is going to be handled. And I'll show you why in a second for the function I'm going to use. I'll show you why we're doing that. So I'm going to go ahead and say register account. So pretend I just had a website and this person, this company registered themselves. And then secondly, they added Africa, right? So any customer or order data that pertains to Africa, they added that to their cart, right? So I'm gonna go ahead and do that here. And so now if I look inside my Crossref table here, this account locator can see Africa related data, right? That's it. And again, this was just kind of more of a tidbit, kind of a fun thing to do inside this exercise and got this use case. Again, I want some of this dynamic filtering, right? So we're not using DDL or something to manipulate views. We're going to change how we filter data all based on data. So step 3, this is kind of where most of the meat of the use case is. So I want to create the shared objects, right? So let me go ahead and set up my session again. I'm going to change my role to sysadmin. And now I'm going to create a database called ShareTest ShareDB. And you're probably saying, David, why are you creating another database if you already have your database sitting here with all your data in it? Well, remember in the use case, we said we don't want any direct access to these tables. So I'm going to go ahead and create another kind of an abstraction. I'm going to create a database. All it's going to have in it is the views into the data from this database, as well as using data from this database to help filter this data. Now it's kind of convoluted, but it's also kind of fun. So how am I accomplishing that? I'm going to go ahead and run on this create function. This function here is very simple. All it's doing is querying that Crossref table based on the account I'm logging in with. If you run this current account function, it's going to tell me. So if I'm on this demo account over here and I ran get current account, it's going to return me back this number right here. So very simple. So now I'm going to go ahead and start adding the views into this. So let me refresh this over here on the side real quick. And you should see my new database, the ShareDB one, come up. Here we go. And you can see there's nothing in it yet, right? I haven't added any views yet. So let's go ahead and start adding these views. And there's a couple of, I did one view for each table, so kind of simplistic. But what you'll see on these tables that have customer or order data, you're going to see here, I'm changing the where clause to use this function. So I'm saying only give me customer data, right, where this Snowflake account has access to see that data. So not only am I building a view into the data, I'm filtering that data kind of dynamically based on the security or configuration information. So I'm going to quickly run through these. I'm just going to hit Control Enter on all these to create these views. Here we go. So order line item, nation, orders view. And you see it kind of changes here. When I go from orders, you can see it had the use of the function. But now when I go to this parts view, you can see that there is no customer or order data. So therefore, it's going to kind of be a pass-through, right? This view is strictly going to give you insight into the entire part table. And the same kind of goes for the rest of these. So part supplier view, the region view is wide open. I can see all those, and the suppliers. Okay. So now if I refresh this, let me refresh my GUI again. Taking a while. For some reason my laptop's a little slow today. There we go. And all the views now appear. So now I have a database. Remember, this database has nothing in it. It strictly has views, which are pointing to two other databases that I'm going to share out, right? So again, this is what I'm going to be sharing. None of the databases up here. A little bit easier, right? Kind of an abstraction layer. So let's keep going. Almost done with this. So let's go ahead and create this share. So of course, since a share is an account-related activity, I have to use account admin to create that share. Now I'm going to go ahead and create the share. I just call mine same region share one, very boring name. But again, all it's doing is creating a logical pointer, right? It's just saying, hey, I have a share. Right now it's empty. And I'm able to grant this share to other accounts. And we're going to grant that to our demo account here in a second. But of course it's empty, so I need to add things to it. So I'm going to go ahead and give usage to the shared database, right? The one I just created. Of course, the schema inside there. And now I'm going to pause on these next two. This reference usage privilege, I have to give that to the share because the share is invoking a view that's going across databases, right? So I kind of have to be able to add security to go across those two data sources. So I have to add this reference usage privilege. So let me add both of those in. Otherwise, you'll get an error saying, hey, the view cannot span multiple data sources. And I'm going to go ahead and add the rest of these view privileges. Just select all the way down here. Remember, I'm adding all this to the share. Again, like we talked about a while ago, I have a folder with files. Same thing here. I have a share that's sitting there, and I'm adding all these database objects into that share. What I'm going to do is leave this last one out here. I'm going to leave this last one out, and I'll show you kind of the benefit of having same cloud provider, same region, kind of real time how this stuff gets updated. I'm going to show you that here in a second. Let's finish this out. So I'm going to go ahead and create, I already created the share. Now I added all my privileges to that share. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to basically on this share, I'm going to say add this account. So this is kind of our organization name. You can do it a couple of different ways. This is the easy way. I'm going to add that account to this share. So now when I click this, there we go, Control Enter to run that. And if I go and look at this, I should have a share now with my name. There we go. So now you can see I have one share. Remember, this is my provider account. So I have one share. It's an outbound share. Here's the name, and here's the database I'm sharing. And you can see, since I read the alter statement already to add the account, it's saying you gave access to this account, and of course, here's the owner. And guys, believe it or not, that's it. That's all we have to do to create, and this was a little bit more than we had to do, right? But that's all we have to do to create a share and give data. So technically, as a provider, I'm done. That fast, my consumers can basically query at will, right? That on demand, that self-service model now kicks in. So let's jump over here to the consumer, and let's see, refresh again, because you can see if I hit refresh, look, nothing shows up again because I haven't done anything yet, right? So if I go look at the shares that are available now in my demo account, you can see now I have an inbound share, right? And here's the name. But you can see I have no database tied to it yet, right? Nothing's created on my side yet. And this is what I was talking about a while ago with the whole file share and having to use it, right? So now I have to go actually invoke that share, right? And create me a database that looks at that share. I could do that through the UI, right? I could come up here in my account admin. Yes, I am. So I could go into the shares over here and see, here you go. That inbound share is registered here. I could go click on this row and then click create, but I like doing things via script. So I'm gonna go back to the worksheet, and I'm going to run this the exact same statement you would have seen if I had done it via the UI. So let's set up my session first. So I'm going to go ahead and use account admin, make sure I have a warehouse. Then I'm going to go ahead and create that database. Guys, that fast. Here we go. There's my database, and you can see it has an arrow, so it's an inbound share. There's my schema, and there's all my views. Of course, what you're noticing is I'm -1 view, right? I did that on purpose a while ago. I want to kind of show you the speed of this. So again, since I'm same cloud provider, same region, I'm accessing this stuff pretty much real time. I'm directly accessing these objects. So if I come over here and I go back, and this one I left out here a while ago. Remember, I left this one out on purpose. So if I come back in here and I add this view, select privilege on this view to that share, there we go. Behind the scenes, Snowflake automatically updates everything. So if I click refresh, there we go. There's my supplier view now shows up. I think that's pretty powerful. I think that's kind of neat that it shows up right away. I didn't have to like remove the database or re-add anything or do an alter. It automatically just shows up as something for me to use. Pretty powerful. And I should be able to just query data. So let me hit the regions here. There we go. That fast. So I'm already querying data out of that shared data set. So let's talk about how we kind of can manipulate this, right? Let's take it a next step. Let's further use that layer of abstraction that we talked about, if I can get that word out, abstraction. So let's talk about what we did a while ago with the filtering. So if I run this query here, it is going to show me it's a very basic one, show me all nations that tie back to the regions that I have access to, right? And of course you can see all I see are nations that are from Africa, because remember, if I go back over here for my account, let me scroll back up for 1 second. There we go. All I added in my cross-reference table here for that function to use, is for this demo account, I said you can see any customer or any kind of information related to Africa. And so you can see when I queried it, that's all I can see. So once again, let's kind of use that abstraction layer. Again, let's say somebody goes back into the website, this fictitious website I've created, and they go and say, I want to add Asia now into my cart. They hit checkout. It basically runs this command. Oh, and I did not have my session set up. Let me go back and set up database, my settings. There we go. Now I run this statement, should work fine. There we go. I added a row. And now if I come back over here, when they hit checkout, think about it, they hit checkout on that website, they come back in literally, they run the query all over again, and right there, boom, Africa and Asia data now appear. I'm sorry, but that is really cool. That is very exciting to see how fast I can give people access to the data they want to see, right? Pretty much almost real time, right? Very powerful stuff. And in a nutshell, this is it. For the most part, this is the whole thing about being a consumer. This is how fast I got my data running. I created a database based on that share. I'm able to query the data that fast. What I added in was one more little thing, kind of a neat thing to note, and it's kind of creating another layer of abstraction. Maybe within my organization or within my Snowflake account, I want to be able to kind of limit, or not limit, but maybe I want to filter data for certain functions within the organization. Maybe marketing need access to this, and sales need access to this, and IT needs access to that. So let's say I want to come in here and I want to create another view inside of a database. I have a raw database. It's just a junk database we have for development. But let's say I have a raw database out here, and I just want to create a view, and I want to be able to give that view to this one department. I don't want them hitting the direct share, right? I want to kind of change it up. Maybe I want to abstract it. Maybe I want to change this where I can give them a better a view of only the data they want to see, not the entire data set, right? I can do that. So let's go back in here. Let's say I use sysadmin role. And if I run this query, I have a problem, right? Because it's not going to work because I created that database from that share as account admin. So let's jump back into account admin. And I have to grant imported privileges on that database, right, to the role that I want to be able to use now. And the reason being is because it's not an object that I own, right? That it's a share that was basically I had the privilege of using that share, right? It was granted to me. So I can't just go and say grant select on or grant usage on. I have to grant imported privileges on that database to whatever role in my account that needs to access that database. So now if I go back to sysadmin, I should be able to query it. Yep, there we go. Everything shows back up. If I refresh this, now as my sysadmin role here, I should be able to see all the objects. And I do. Great. So let's just finish this up real quick. So if I go and say I want to use database raw, I want to use the schema public, and I'm going to create me a simple view. All it's going to do is create a view on top of the view. Again, so I can kind of do these layers of abstraction. I can build those multiple layers and present these views how I want to, or how my organization wants to see them, right? More refined. So I can create that view on top of that one. And if I go, so that view is created. If I go and run that view, of course I'm going to see the same data because I didn't change any of these names or anything, but kind of neat. Gives me another layer of abstraction that I can tailor this shared data set to fit my organization. And that is it. I am actually complete. That fast, we were able to use a consumer account, right? Use a provider account to create a share. Let me jump back over to my notes. And we're able to also use that consumer to very quickly attach that share, create a database, and use it. So let's summarize real quick. So Snowflake data sharing, extremely versatile and ideal for data sharing for any number of consumers, right? I create one share, I can share it with whoever I want, and you saw kind of how I extended that a little bit, right? I took it and I said, hey, not only can I share with unlimited number of customers, I can kind of create me a shopping cart mechanism where I can even tailor and filter that data even further for those customers, right? Our focus for this one, bullet number 2, was part 1, right? This really was both consumer and provider are Snowflake accounts, and they are operating within the same cloud and region. You saw the speed of that, right? How fast everything was pretty much real time. When I did something in the provider account, the consumer account instantly saw it. And really, we walk through the whole real world use case, right? This is where the industry is going. This is how they want to use their data. They want these benefits. Let me go back real quick. They want these benefits, right? Query on demand, right? I want the updates to be instant. I don't have to parse a file every time I want to do something and only pick out the pieces I want, right? I want to be able to consume, again, back to that simplicity and self-service, right? I want to be able to get to those things. I want to be able to get to my data and consume it when I want, however I want, right? And then also extend it. You saw how we could extend it a little ways too. All right, guys, I believe that's it for me. I really appreciate you watching today, and I hope this helped you understand data sharing a little more. Please remember, we're going to get a part 2 out, which is going to be, again, sharing data across cloud platforms. And I really appreciate it. Thanks for watching, and please subscribe for more Hashmap NTT content.